Good evening! Hello. Welcome to In the Court of the Wenton Knave. We're doing Freak Out to Civilization Phase 3, A Mighty Journey. Last week we did Lumpy Gravy, which is part 1 of We're Only In It For The Money. And this week we're doing We're Only In It For The Money, which is part 2 of Lumpy Gravy. Bit of a yin and a yang thing going on there. You'll notice, rather stupidly, I've actually folded the cover over and put the original cover on the outside. That's not the original cover. That's the original cover that was intended, because it's the parody of Sgt. Pepper, obviously. Possibly one of the most controversial things I'm going to be doing, because the accepted wisdom is that this is definitive. To me, it is not definitive. Brilliant, I love it. But it is not definitive Zappa, because it's missing the key ingredients. The complex compositions, the guitar solos actually are not evident yet. And obviously orchestral work. There's smidgens. Overall, this is a satirical album. For me, the best bits are the bits that are actually from Lumpy Gravy, because they were recorded together. Not only are these two albums two phases, but there was a whole project called No Commercial Potential, which consisted of Lumpy Gravy, We're Only In It For The Money, Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, and Uncle Meat. Now, as far as Zappa was concerned, they could all be cut up differently. It was all one album. So it is interesting how he split them up into distinct styles. You've got the avant-garde orchestra album, you've got the satirical album, you've got the traditional doo-wop album, and you've got the fusion, prog, whatever you want to call it, album in Uncle Meat. For that reason, this is not my favourite Zappa album. I like it a lot, it's brilliant. I mean, I like the lyrical stuff, but to me, both Lumpy Gravy and Uncle Meat surpass it. Massive, controversial. And interestingly, I found it less accessible than Lumpy Gravy, even though this is considered madness and this is considered the accessible. Not to me, it wasn't. But then what do I know? So yeah, it to a certain extent, it's the third in a trilogy. I think the last in the trilogy, from Freak Out, Absolutely Free, We're Only In It For The Money. Some of them are classic Zappa melodies. There's some fantastic music concrete on there. Some of the melodies are parodies of the music it's satirising. I suppose for that reason I like it less than some of the other stuff. I don't like the cartoon voices. The cartoon vocals, which were recorded a 70-tone lower and then put up as a parody, obviously. So it works. There's no question it works. It's just not my favourite thing. But I do like it. Gained him lots of notoriety. I think it did him a lot of good in the long run. Famously re-recorded the rhythm section to this album in the 80s with pretty horrific results. So I'm lucky I've got the 90s CD release, which reintroduced the rhythm section. I'm very lucky there. Both this and Cruising with Ruben and the Jets had their rhythm sections replaced, and he did comment that the tape was wrecked for this one. The master tapes, basically all the oxide had come off the tape. He didn't think Cruising was that bad, but replaced both of them. Subsequently reinstated the original rhythm section to this, but not Cruising. So that's interesting. I don't know why that is, and I don't know how. Maybe technology moved on and they could recover it. But I'm glad they didn't, because it sounds like it does. I suppose you could argue the rhythm section sound like they're playing in a cardboard box next door, and the rest of the album is much more forward in your face. It sounds a lot better than his first two albums, put it that way. And man, there's some great lyrics on here. Some fantastic lyrics. Opens with Are You Hung Up? That's Eric Clapton saying Are You Hung Up? Which is interesting. It just isn't as profound as the stuff on Lumpy Gravy. I don't know why that is. It's just entertaining. Then you got Who Needs the Peace Corps. Quite a famous track, obviously laying down his intention that he is very much parodying the hippie movement. It's very meaningful. I think there's an argument that song became out of date when the hippie movement finished, but really that still applies to a lot of rebellious music. You know, okay, whether that be punk or new wave or whatever. So that's interesting. But obviously the stuff about being beaten up by the police and all that stuff, that stopped happening when obviously the nation's youth became good little consumers and talked about changing the world, but not doing anything about it. Concentration Moon. In a sense, that's the most controversial thing on the album, because that's about concentration camps, which in America, which were used for the Japanese, being used for hippies. So that's pretty dark stuff. Mum and Dad, again, about at this point having to go at the right, obviously, about kids being shot, which was happening, obviously, and it was prophetic, sadly, obviously, with the famous stuff with Nixon a couple of years later. Then we got Telephone Conversation, which is a bit of dialogue, followed by Bowtie Daddy. It's only 33 seconds long. I'm amazed how much is put onto that bit of fun there. Harry, You're a Beast, that's pretty good. The melodies are starting to get a bit more sophisticated there. It's quite good. Track 8, I love. What is the ugliest part of your body? It's funny. It's proper doo-wop stylistically, but with the middle section, obviously, Zappa laying down what he wants to say. It's funny how it works better as a doo-wop song than a lot of the stuff on Cruising with Ruben and the Jets. Then you got Absolutely Free, all about corporatisation, obviously. Flower Punk. Okay, Flower Punk is where it kind of doesn't work for me on the album. It is a parody, obviously, of the Flower Power, whatever, but musically it is following that same pattern, and I don't find it very enjoyable to listen to. Hot Poop is important. It's only 26 seconds, but it contains the bit that was censored from the original version of the album, reversed. So within onto the second side, and I think the second side is much better. We've got Nasal retentive Calliope music. I don't know what that is, which is music concrete. Some fantastic stuff from the same sessions which gave us all that stuff that was on Lumpy Gravy. Really brilliant, and it goes together with Let's Make the Water Turn Black. And obviously when that comes back in, that's a fantastic moment when the piano comes in. Let's Make the Water Turn Black is one of my favourite Zappa melodies. It's wonderfully accessible. It works better for me as an instrumental because it emphasises the melody rather than the lyrics. Those two songs, Let's Make the Water Turn Black and Idiot Bastard Son, are an example of Zappa doing his folk thing. I won't go into too much detail about that, but you can certainly look that up. Lonely Little Girl, another song. Then you've got quite a famous song, Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. I prefer the instrumental version. I'm surprised it's not at the end of the album, as with Lumpy Gravy, but that's okay, because then you have the reprise of What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body, probably parodying Sgt. Pepper. And then Mother People is an interesting song. How sarcastic is it? Is it saying, yeah, come and be mother people like us, be different like us? And that's got to be a satire, surely. I mean, it's kind of like the goths in South Park saying, "Oh, to be different, you've got to dress exactly like us and behave exactly like us." So I'm assuming that's a parody. Leaving the chrome plated Megaphone of Destiny. For me, best thing on the album. You've got an extended piece of music concrete. It's worth the price of admission. So that's. We're only in it for the money. A seminal work, a very famous piece of work. Not my definitive moment personally, although I really like it. I love the satire, but that was yet to come. Join me next week for Cruising with Ruben and the Jets. See you soon.